So welcome, I'm Tom Peterson. Would like to introduce you to the first episode of the CBD show. We're glad you're here to watch this show with us. And I just want to utilize this opportunity to introduce you to my special guest today. This is Sara Johnston. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So the reason for this show is to really, again, spread awareness and education about CBD through the stories of others. So this is really their story episode, and this story is going to be about Sara and her journey with CBD and all of the things that she has been through and ultimately where she is today. A couple things I just want to mention. Make sure that you subscribe. We certainly want you to be tuned in to future shows of ours that we're doing. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And also make sure that you like this if you like it. If you have a comment, please feel free to share those. We would love to hear your comments. And if there's anything that maybe we can do a show on or a show about, we'd love to do that as well. So let us know on that. And then if this can be beneficial to anybody that you care about, that you love, that you're close to, if her story can be of benefit to somebody else, please feel free to share this video with others. Again, our purpose here is to try and give you more knowledge and awareness about CBD and the benefits of it, and how it's changing lives of others. So we'll start, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I know Sara. So Sara has been cutting my hair. I have a hard time describing. Do I call you a hairstylist?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds better than, because you're not a barber.
Right.
So you're not
No.
So she's my hairstylist, has been for a long time. And so one thing that we've enjoyed doing during the time that we sit there in that 20 or 30 minutes is we talk about our ailments and our issues and our problems. And so Sara and I have spent many, many years sitting there having these discussions. So it's fitting that Sara would be in our first episode of this show. And so I want to give her the floor to kind of talk about her life and ultimately what led her here. But I'm going to also chime in along the way and ask some questions and try and dig a little bit deeper if we can. So if you've watched the channel, you already know about my story. That's ultimately what led me here to do this show. You'll now have an opportunity to hear Sara's story. So with that, we'll begin. And we're going to begin with her childhood because it's quite fascinating. This story goes back a long ways. So I have my little cheat sheet here, my tablet, just to make sure I stay on course and keep us on course.
Okay. Perfect.
But we're going to talk a little bit about her childhood and how the ailments all began and what she suffered with. Now, if you guys have watched my journey, I was a train wreck. I must say, I can't hold a candle to Sara. She has been much more so of a train wreck than myself. So it's a fascinating, I think she could attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating to me, all of the things that she has had to deal with and contend with throughout her lifetime and where she is today in relation to those ailments, those conditions, those issues. So excited to have her discuss that with us. Let's start off at the beginning. If you would tell us a little bit about when it all began. I think it was with the sinusitis, right?
Yeah, as a young child, I was very prone to getting sinus infections and often strep throat, probably more often than your average child. So it was not unfamiliar to me to take antibiotics even as a young child.
And so that was something that I assume that with the sinusitis, which really, since the audience, I didn't know what that was until we started having this conversation. Explain to them a little bit more about what sinusitis really is.
So for me, I just got sinus infections often to the point of like swelling, pain, pressure, and just chronic buildup of sinus through your cheeks, forehead. So it would include headaches, fever, weakness,
Okay.
Those were some of the main things.
And so the antibiotics were prescribed to
help clear up the infection. And for me, it was just like a chronic reoccurring. I could barely get one cleared up, maybe have a good month or two, and ta-da, back to another one.
So as a kid, probably pretty difficult to have to deal with that on a regular basis, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Moving a little bit past the childhood, this is kind of when things really started to come into play in terms of other issues that really stuck with her, and surgery couldn't really help with those. Now, we'll get back into the conversation about surgeries you've had with your sinuses and how that's been beneficial. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little bit about what you started to experience also when you were younger, which was the joint pain, correct?
Yeah, and so very, very often, pretty much all of my joints have had inflammation and painful, just abnormal stiffness for a young person. From my ankles to my hips to my shoulders, wrists, pretty much all of my joints felt problematic and painful on a regular basis, not like a normal, let's say in your 20s, should be like.
And so that did you say it started in your 20s?
Yeah.
Give or take?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say probably early 20s, I started having joint pains.
And then you went to the doctor about that at some point in time, and what took place then?
At some point, definitely I've always had, we'll put it as inflammation. So I've had inflammation issues from a young age. And so that was basically discovered in the blood work, but there was never anything tapped onto it, never a tag of anything, just inflammation and sore joints for many years.
But there was one thing that you did mention at some point in time, that word started to come up in those conversations. Mm-hmm. It's not as though somebody said, I diagnosed you with autoimmune disease or disorder. Whatever.
Autoimmune was used, that term was used on me often, but it never was diagnosed. I'm like, well, what is it? Is it arthritis? Never said rheumatoid arthritis or anything, just that they considered me autoimmune because of the inflammation in my body. The blood work always had a significant level of the CRP, which is how they measure the inflammation.
Okay. And so you've been getting blood work for how long?
Well, pretty much my whole life, but now the last 8 years I've been going to the same doctor. So I have had my blood work done every 3 months for the last 8 years. But even before that, up into the 15 years back, was probably at least 3 times a year, probably.
Okay. And so we're going to discuss the blood work in a separate video. We're not going to get into that today because it's fairly in-depth. So we're going to do a separate video on the blood work, but it is quite fascinating. So we'll make sure that we circle back around and provide that for you guys as well. Let's talk then a little bit about something else that came into play, and that was a gluten intolerance. Mm-hmm. That came into play in that period of time. How would you say roughly? So
that's probably dating back to around, 15 years ago, okay. I would say, around that time, around the time that I was having massive inflammation and joint pains. At some point, I would notice, it just massive more inflammation after eating gluten. So I went in and I got a test done, and that was at a homeopathic doctor. And they did tell me that I was gluten intolerant. Now that isn't the same as like celiacs or anything. It's just an intolerance that caused problems in my body. So for me, my personal experience with gluten was my fingers and my toes would swell excessively. They would look like little sausages, and then my digestive system would shut down. So no matter how clean outside of the gluten I had eaten, I would not be able to eliminate. And that would be a real problem, potentially up to like 5 days or more. So it would just make me feel horrible because I was not able to eliminate, and my hands, feet, everything swollen that you could noticeably see physically. The swelling, and then my digestive system was not able to process it. So it's almost like it shut down. I would not be able to eliminate for often up to 5 days or more, which became more of an uncomfortable situation because then you just feel like you're just expanding day by day and not able to eliminate, and just swollen hands and feet. Very uncomfortable. I always paid the price whenever I would indulge in gluten.
Okay. And hard not to. Because it's in so many things,
right.
As we know. Right.
Yeah, I was very upset with that at first, and I challenged it often just because I didn't want to accept it. And every
pay the price.
Yeah,
often, yes.
Every time I would pay the price, and eventually it got to the point of it was just such a horrible experience that I really did try to keep it out of my diet and keep clear out of it for many years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that this is kind of when things really started to kind of get off the track, so to speak, in my mind, as I kind of hear your story and look at the chronology of it all. Mm-hmm. Because the next thing that really started to come into play was the inability to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that has been battled on and off for a little bit longer than what you may know. So probably, in my early 20s as well, I might have started having issues, but they got progressively worse with time. And at the time that this was all going on, there would be many of nights that I would be up on Facebook, awake at 4 a.m., 2 a.m., not able to sleep. And if I did get to sleep, it might only be a good couple hours and I'd be up again. So disrupted sleep and not able to get back to sleep for many, many years. So I did get a prescription from the doctor for a sleep aid. And even taking the sleep aid from the doctor, it would get me to sleep, but it would not keep me to sleep for more than 4 hours. So there was probably, I don't know how many years of my life that 4 hours was my average sleep for many years, because I wouldn't get back to sleep after I would wake up.
And so because you can't really wake up, take another one, you go back.
No,
right? It doesn't work like that.
Right. And yeah. I mean, I might have on a couple of days where I didn't have to be up early, but I don't think that it was actually probably a great idea to do.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And then also it almost would leave you almost feeling like a hangover.
Got it. Mm-hmm. So, and again, the other thing to keep in mind too, is even though Sara was getting this 4 hours of sleep, we don't know if she's even getting into a deep sleep cycle, because a lot of times the prescribed medications they're not going to ultimately make that happen for you.
Funny you should say that, because I didn't have any dreams for many, many years. It's only been recently that I've been getting dreams.
Yeah. So that says a lot in terms of what deep sleep cycle you were or were not in at the time, because your dream sleep is a deep sleep cycle.
Yeah.
So very interesting. And then, so as far as the prescription, so that was prescribed to you, you said about 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so the prescription was, again, we're not going to go into the brand or name of it, but again, a very commonly described sleep medication.
Probably the most common, yeah.
The most common, okay. And again, you were on that. I can remember having conversations with you where you, even after being on that medication, you were still trying all kinds of other things.
Absolutely.
Also.
Everything natural and, anything in my sleep machine, the noise machine, lavender, essential oil, Epsom salt baths to relax, you name it, I've tried it. Sleepy time tea, any kind of tea that was supposed to help with the sleep, whatever. Yeah. And all in conjunction, melatonin, you name it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the results from all of that, you really never achieved any great results.
I never got the results I was looking for from any of them individually or all of them combined, because I tried any mixture of them.
I remember you had a lot of different combinations and things that you were trying. So,
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah, very good. Well done. Well explained there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk then about the next thing that came into play, because this is, again, where things just kind of go from bad to worse. Mm-hmm. What kind of came next for you? As I recall in my notes, it was the OCD and the anxiety and the panic attacks, right?
Yeah, they just progressively kind of got worse with age and time.
That goes back a way. So was there anything, let's talk about the panic attacks. Was there anything that stands out to you where the anxiety actually got to that point to where you started to experience the panic attacks?
Yeah, just from probably normal day-to-day stress that people should be able to handle would be enough to send me into a minor panic attack. And then, God forbid, anything that actually substantial happened, I was not able to process it and handle it. And I would shut down and just have a full-blown panic attack.
Okay. So you went to see the doctor.
Yes.
About that. Mm-hmm. Tell a little bit more about what happened there.
So prescribed another type of pill, another prescription to try to keep that at bay. I kept it on hand just to take as needed if I felt anxiety coming on. I never really got into a daily routine of taking it to manage. It was more like if I felt something coming on, I always had a prescription pill to try to pop to calm me down a little bit. But then you become dependent on that. And without it, if I didn't have my bottle in my purse, then that was enough to send me into another panic attack.
So she was prescribed a benzo.
Mm-hmm.
I call it benzo. It's benzodiazepine, if I'm not mistaken. And so one thing with benzos is they can be very addictive. Mm-hmm. It's an opioid-based pharmaceutical. Mm-hmm. And so did you ever feel, would you say that there were any negative side effects with that, or maybe not so much because you weren't using it a lot?
Well, I mean, if I I didn't really misuse it. I'd used it as needed. And the only negatives would be that you were not really able to function. It would bring you down so low that it's not like I could go on with a normal work day and perform at a normal level of ability, so it interfered with your ability to really be at your best, to perform at your best.
Yeah.
And in my profession, that's kind of important.
Well, so let's talk about her profession, because this is now where you have your baseline problems,
right?
Which is as if that isn't enough.
Yeah.
And now, because of her work and what she does for a living, she has now encountered additional problems and issues. These are more on the physical side as opposed to some of the others. But let's talk a little bit about some of those. Kind of start out with maybe the one that started to impact or affect you first. And let's kind of go through some of those.
Oh, which one came first?
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
Chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
We'll start with the foot pain or the varicose veins or
the wrist. We can start anywhere. Yeah. So I'll probably start with the wrist because it's the most significant, and it always has been of my pain issues. So I was taught to cut hair with a right hand scissors in my left hand when I went back to hair school way long ago. So I continued to cut hair with my left hand using a right hand shears. In order to make those blades cut, you almost have to torque your hand back. And that is a repetitive movement that I had to do. And I did that for 22 years of my 26-year career. So that caused a lot of damage in the wrist.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
So 22 years in, you finally figured out.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Not the brightest star in the sky. But I thought I had mastered this technique and I didn't need the left-handed shears because I'm so talented. Yes. So that came back to bite me. So the wrist pain was very, very significant. All kinds of apparatuses. I would sleep in the brace. I have, above and beyond what you're supposed to have for cortisone injections. I've had at least 9 cortisone injections in my wrist just to be able to function and continue to make a living. So I understand that you're not supposed to do that many, but I didn't see an option. I was not going to be functionable without getting cortisone in my wrist. So I would go as long as I could in between, but that's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me when you say that, because there are hopefully a number of people watching this who can identify with Sara with regards to your work. So our work is what puts food on the table. That's what we have to do. And so I know myself that I've done things so that I could continue to do the work, right?
Yep.
And so you're put in a position where it's, okay, what are my options? I have to continue to do my work. So I'm going to resort to whatever measures are necessary to make that happen and accomplish that. And that's a slippery slope.
Right.
Right? And I can remember specifically you having that brace on your wrist.
I had one to work with, one to sleep with, and if not that, then I tried wrapping certain ways with the tape. I try all kinds of stuff.
And limited mobility.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then let's talk about some of the other ailments. So this also affected your feet?
Yeah. So, standing, and I'm a fairly ambitious hairstylist. So I've worked a lot of hours in my 26-year career. And at some point, I've had issues with both feet, but significantly my left foot, I had a lot of problems with. And I would go in for different treatments. So they would scrape it where it was excruciating. They would thump it with a big machine. I had cortisone injected in my foot as well. That's not fun. So I went through all kinds and I've had to wear, of course, special shoes, special insoles just to be able to walk. I mean, forget about those high heels that a lot of hairstylists wear. It's a big mistake. Don't do it. If there's a hairstylist watching this, don't do it. It'll come back to haunt you. Yeah. I barely wore heels, but I almost had to wear special looking shoes to be comfortable.
Yeah. And so then that also had an impact on your veins? Correct?
Yes, the standing thing. So I've had some varicose vein issues. So I've had several different surgeries on the varicose veins, and both of them were the laser technique where they go in with a hot laser and burn them out. But then something happened on my second procedure, the surgery that I had. I couldn't tell you exactly what caused it or whether it was a mistake or just something that happened. I really don't know, but nerve damage to the tune of not being able to touch my leg after that second surgery. From my ankle to my knee and the inside of my leg was a no-go for any kind of touching.
So how does that work? How do you deal with a situation such as that? I mean, we don't think about it, but I'm touching my leg right now, just having it crossed.
Yeah, so even walking was painful, but that was not super problematic. But when it came time to shave, that was a problem. When I went for a pedicure, I had to let them know, do not touch above the ankle. If I went for a massage, I would just say, stop here, stop at the ankle, nothing in between. It was not to be touched. It was that painful.
And so that went on for, you said, how long?
I thought it was about a year.
Okay.
That's only been recently resolved, which I'm super happy about.
Okay, and that was resolved how long ago?
This has just been it's probably around March.
Okay.
I started being able to touch it, and now it's just each month has been better and better. And now I've been able to get, I would say I've gotten 4 massages where I didn't even have to warn them about not touching it. I didn't have to warn them about pressure. I let them just do a normal massage. So that's been a real godsend.
Okay. That's awesome. It's great to hear. Now there's one other thing that she did that was not work related, which we've all done if we're people who spend time in the gym and things of that nature. Certainly my back issue heavily related to that. Let's talk a little bit about your elbow, because you also damaged your elbow, right?
That was a significant tear in my elbow from probably lifting a little bit improperly and too heavy and repetitively. It wasn't one day where I was lifting and it just went, oh my gosh, something happened. All of a sudden, it was just fairly problematic and became more. And eventually it got to the point of I had to stop going to the gym. And I also, again, was put in fear of not being able to do my job, because I could not pick up a piece of paper this direction. I could do nothing overhanded. I could not barely close them because of the tear. Now, underhanded, no problem. I could hold stuff, do stuff, but I was not able to use my blow dryer to go overhanded. I had to do everything underhanded. As a hairstylist, that's not really convenient. And that did not make for smooth cuticle blown down flat. So let's
you
just
were
say,
getting referred for that one.
No, a lot of my clients forwent the blow dry for that period of time, because it just really wasn't an option. I could not move it that way. That I was scheduled for surgery for that. But unfortunately, the time that they told me that I would need to be off work was 2 months. And as a self-employed hairstylist, that's not really an option for me to not have income for 2 months. So as it got closer to the time of the surgery and I was looking at my account, I was like, I just can't do this. So I didn't do that surgery, but it took a lot of time, and it's gotten better with time.
And so the surgery, that was just one of 2 surgeries.
Right. Next up was going to be my wrist after they fixed the torn tendon. Then we had already done the MRI on both. And the surgeon had agreed that it would be a good thing to get my wrist cleared out. And I don't know what all he planned to do, but I hope that I never have to experience that.
Yeah. Well, so Sara and I had many conversations about this, because she was really struggling with, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to have these surgeries that I desperately need? I'm going to be off work. How am I going to make an income? How am I going to make that all happen? So I know that was a very difficult and stressful, kind of scary. Extremely
stressful and scary, and extremely painful and overwhelming.
Yeah. Wow. So then there's one other thing I want to talk. There's two other things left on the list. Believe it or not, we're not done. There's still others to come, other issues. Let's talk a little bit about the hormone issues that you also were having. And this, you say, was about 5 years ago, is that right?
Just about, because next month is my birthday. So just about 5 years ago. So I'll just start with, I had went into my doctor and said, I think I should take testosterone because everybody at the gym that's taking it looks so slim. So she's like, well, that's not how it works. We have to check your hormones. So we did a hormone panel at the age of 40. And she said, yeah, you won't be getting testosterone because your testosterone is off the charts high. So I was, I was upset because I wanted to be able to take that.
Sure.
But then a year later, when we did my blood work, my hormones were totally different. My testosterone, instead of being off the charts high, was now basically down to 0.0 something, almost non-existent for testosterone. So then she put me on testosterone injections that I do myself at home once a week, a very low dose. And that brought my testosterone up to not quite where she wanted it, but where it was at least in a close to normal, healthy range.
Okay. And so what were the side effects? I shouldn't say side effects. What were the symptoms of this condition, this hormonal condition of yours that you had?
Well, the testosterone, I didn't necessarily notice too much happening there. But when I also got on another, progesterone was something else that I was given. And I took that for several years with no problems. And then something happened where I started having a lot of breast tenderness where it actually just hurt to walk. And we kind of need to walk. So, and I was shedding a lot of extra tears randomly. So I couldn't really explain why I was crying, and that was kind of embarrassing. So I actually, not at the young age, went and got a pregnancy test. I'm like, could I be pregnant? What is happening here? Because my breasts are sore, I'm crying, but my hormones were just out of whack.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And so even though you were still having those symptoms, you were still taking it because... That's
what I was told to do. Right. And so I was like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. It's probably going to all figure itself out. So I kept taking them.
Okay. All right. And then one more thing, too, that Sara had to deal with. We're not going to go into how or why, but I do want to talk about the symptoms of that.
Right.
Is PTSD.
Yeah.
So she had something occur in her life that ultimately caused that to become a problem for you. I'll let you elaborate and tell us a little about.
Yeah. So after the incident, I had a hard time being in public in general. So imagine my panic problems that I'd had before and panic attacks, the anxiety and panic from the past. Imagine that on steroids and then some. It was to the point of rearranging my salon so my back would not be faced to the door. And there was a lot of times that I dodged any kind of public outing for a long time, probably at least a good 6 months, somewhere between 6 months and a year before I really started to feel comfortable to doing restaurants or whatever it may be. Just regular social stuff that people do. Right? Yeah, that I used to do, and that you should be able to, and normal people do all the time. Yeah. I had trouble even being in public, and just a lot of fear-based. Yeah. Okay.
And that's even with the benzo of it being available. Did you try? How did the benzo work for that? Did you try utilizing it for that?
It was. It would basically tame it from being wildly embarrassing to mildly embarrassing situation, because tears and just losing control of myself, not being able to carry on a conversation, whether it would be from tears or just shutting down, not even being able to talk.
And so you have this combination of, it's that bad. So you take the benzo to try and minimize that. Well, then you can't really function and do other things when you're on a medication. So what I'm getting at is the vicious cycle we all get into. You take a medication, a prescription for this, it has a side effect of that. You then can't do that, so you can't take it as much as you need to for the comfort, or whatever the condition might be. Or it's a situation where you can't drive your car because it says so on the bottle, you are going to be impaired, right? So again, you were caught in a very, very challenging predicament with all these different things going on.
Yes.
So ultimately, what led you to consider CBD as a solution, and tell us a little bit about how that came to be and the timing of it all, so we can kind of go into how your life has changed because of CBD.
So that was, now probably almost 4 years ago, or a little over 4 years ago. So I've heard about it, and I was kind of naive to it. I didn't really realize. So I went and got my medical marijuana card, which wasn't a problem for me, given all my elements. It's like, which MRI or blood work do you want?
That's the only way you could get CBD at the time. You had
maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's why. That's the route that I took. Yeah. So I went and got my card, and so I would say what I did for the next 4 years was kind of toy around with it. I didn't take it on a consistent basis. I would try the gummy, try the tincture, try this, try it here, there, but not on a regular, consistent basis. And I never really got too much results. In my head, I told myself, well, if you weren't taking it, it would probably be worse. You better keep taking it. Right. It's probably doing something on some level, So I just kept taking it, but I never really noticed too much difference. And eventually I was just like, I'm spending a lot of money and I really am not noticing too much of a difference. So I just gave up on it for a short time. And then this last fall, they discovered that I had a staph infection in my sinuses. I had a plastic piece in from a surgery that I had 13 years ago. So they recommended that I get that plastic piece taken out, which would be another surgery. And I was scheduled for the day after Christmas. So at that point, I made a kind of a rash decision because I had this many supplements on my counter. I had this list of prescriptions from the doctor. And that really wasn't how I wanted to live anymore. And I really, if I'm still feeling bad and I'm taking all this, what am I doing? How can this be? This is just not working. So at the time, as we all know, when you're going to have surgery, you have to stop taking your fish oil and a couple other things that recommend that you stop taking before surgery so your blood isn't thinned out or whatever the reason is. So I decided, why don't I take this opportunity to stop taking all of this? Why don't I take this opportunity to start taking CBD morning and night as directed? Why don't I just see what can happen with a whole different mindset and just a whole different routine?
And one more thing that we don't want to forget is the CBD that she chose to take is a CBD that is 100% pure with third-party testing. So we know that what you're taking is what it says it is on the bottle.
Absolutely.
And I want to make sure I bring this up because when we talk about the CBD industry 4 years ago, a year ago it was still bad. Even today, there's regulation that's being done. We can even talk about that a bit more. And there are good positive things happening there. A lot of third-party testing is being done. But prior to that really being something that was kind of forced for the industry to start to be responsible and do, who knows what you were getting when you were buying that bottle.
Right.
And I know myself, when I got my bottle and it was mislabeled and the label was on crooked, I was just like, okay, how am I even going to trust what's written on the label of this thing? I don't even know what it is.
Right.
And so who knows what you were actually taking.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So continue, please.
So I decided with the high quality CBD oil before surgery. So I stopped taking all my supplements and I started taking the CBD as directed morning and night. And I had my surgery the day after Christmas. Surgery was a breeze, went really smooth. And I continued to not put those supplements back into my routine. So I went 2 months without taking any supplements of the so many that I had. I took nothing except the CBD. Oh, I'm sorry. And my thyroid, my nature thyroid and my testosterone injections are the only thing. But the bottles and prescriptions, none of it. I didn't take any of it.
And you were spending roughly how much a month on
Yeah,
all of this?
I'm just going to round it off and say 400 is a fair number.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And all the while, really not experiencing any positive or great benefits.
No, I just thought all these things were necessary to be at this level. And what if I wasn't taking all these things, So I went for 2 months with taking nothing but the CBD. And then at the third month, I thought, well, you can't just never take another supplement. Maybe you should just take a few things. So I took very minimum the third month. I took a probiotic daily. I took a liquid multivitamin once a week. And I was working on my mind-body connection. So I intuitively chose 2 vitamins for the week that I felt like my body needed. And that was my third month routine. So 2 months of nothing, 1 month of that. And then I did my blood work. And that's when I had the best blood work of 8 years. And my inflammation marker was significantly down and basically was no longer considered autoimmune.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
That's huge.
Now let's talk about the medications. Not only were you taking all of these supplements,
right,
but you had the medications, the prescriptions that you were taking as well.
Right.
So what came of those?
So I can proudly say I have not taken either one of those medications since this whole year. So
we're in July. No, August.
Yeah.
Goodness,
we're in August.
So we're in August.
So it was trickling in effect. So by the end of January, there was not either one of those prescriptions taken, and there hasn't been this whole time.
Wow. And so how are you sleeping?
I sleep better than I have since high school. So going to sleep, I happen to listen to a guided meditation. That's just something that I do, but I have not made it probably more than 15 minutes into the guided meditation before I fall asleep. So it's not a problem for me anymore. And another thing is the amount of times that I used to go to the bathroom. When my sleep would be disrupted, I would be up 2 to 5 times to go to the bathroom. And now it is 0.
So how much sleep are you getting?
So I'm still not a huge sleeper. I hope to maybe increase, or maybe this is all I need because I feel pretty fantastic. But anywhere from 6 to 7.5 hours is what I get now. But it's a solid uninterrupted,
right.
Yes. So,
and you're dreaming.
And yes, and so I'm having my first dreams that I haven't had in many years.
Yeah.
And that actually happened the first week on the CBD. One thing I noticed was that I had a dream, and that gave me a lot of hope because it had been years since I'd had a dream.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome. And then also the one day oddly enough, I was only 4 days in. You can't necessarily expect these kind of results, but I was only 4 days into taking the soil, and I would walk to the bathroom in the morning, and where I was going to go from carpet to hardwood, I braced myself because I'm used to doing a little dance, maybe with a couple not so whatever words, and I hit the floor, and there was no heel pain. I had no pain. I noticed it immediately. I pressed my heel down. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It was gone. There was no foot pain.
So let's talk about your other pain. Let's talk a little bit about your joints.
Okay, so each couple weeks I would kind of take a scan of where I was at physically, and I just started to feel better and better and better. Probably I was actually about 2.5 bottles in when I went to shave my leg, and which I usually have to barely touch, and I noticed it wasn't painful. I pressed a little harder, and I was like, wow. So it started being able to be touched a little harder, and that kind of just gradually, got better, along with everything kind of has gradually gotten better.
So the nerve pain was obvious,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obvious improvement.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the wrist.
So the wrist, I haven't been able to bend my wrist at this angle for 15 years. The fact that I can go straight up and down, that's a miracle to me, because that has not happened. It's always been so inflamed and almost like stuck. So now to be able to do that, that's crazy.
No pain in doing that.
No pain in doing that. Yeah. No, there's still, my wrist is not 100% perfect, but I'm super happy for the relief I've gotten, and to be able to have movement and to know that I'm going to be able to continue in my career. It's a huge blessing.
So that's going to help you sleep better too, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that's really interesting about Sara's story is, with regards to the CBD, she obviously, as you can tell, based on what she's saying, she didn't have all of these results in 3 or 4 or 5 days. Yes, some results came quickly within a week, but other results came 60, 75, 90 days later, right? So,
and I continue to get them. So, I'm now, we're in August, as we said. So now I'm 9 months in, and I feel like I'm still getting continued relief. And I am excited to see where I'm at in a year. I'm excited to see where I'm at in a year and a half. I'm a CBDer for life at this point. So I won't be without it.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine life without it at this point?
No,
it's hard to, right?
That is a life that I'm not interested in.
Right?
Yeah.
It's been 3 months for me, and I'm still experiencing amazing things as well that I just become more aware of also. And one other thing too that has been very interesting to me in my journey has been the mind and body connection. This is something I've touched on, and I will probably continue to do more of it because you brought it up. About working on your mind and body connection. And one thing that I've noticed, again, this could just be me, right? But I've noticed my mind and my body seem to have a better connection in terms of my body feeling something, my mind being able to understand more clearly what it's feeling, and being able to then identify more clearly what's really going on, and then actually be able to come up with a plan.
Right.
The self-diagnosis, and then even a plan to how to even manage it. So I've been through that in my story with my myofascial pain syndrome. And so I'm just curious, this mind-body thing, how has CBD affected or impacted that for you?
I should say that I also added yoga into my daily routine, and I did that around the same time. So right at the beginning of the year, and I feel like that's also helped. So I've been really working hard, at trying to make that connection for myself, because I feel like very often we expect our bodies to do so much, and you don't really think about the connection with your mind and your body, and you just expect your body to perform. And we're very hard on our body. So I just wanted to take the time to try to be kind to my body, connect to my body, feel what my body needed. What kind of foods did my body crave? Like, I'm trying to be in touch with all of that. So as for it's just been a whole journey this whole time. I can't say exactly. I know that the mind-body connection keeps getting stronger and stronger. And I've definitely, I don't know how to explain some of the things, but I do find myself probably intuitively doing things that my body needs. I happen to be craving cilantro all the time, so I'm eating it. I'm positive there's something in it that my body wanted. And just to be able to think of that and actually realize that that's probably happening for a reason,
right,
is a connection,
yes.
you know?
Yes. So very interesting you mentioned that, because there are certain fresh fruits and things that I've been craving myself that I've never craved before. But it's like my body is yearning for that. And the way that it feels when I'm actually ingesting that or just eating it, it's kind of like this amazing, it's almost like vitamin C kind of always had this impact on me. If I would eat an orange, my body would actually feel magically better in some fashion if I was maybe feeling tired or not just feeling 100%. It seemed like an orange always seemed to make a difference. So it's very interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I do find myself, I'm always been health conscious, but I do find myself listening to my body, and the things that my body seems to want are really healthy and good. And I've been enjoying them more than ever too.
One thing that's very interesting to me, and this is a connection that I made, meditation has been known to, provide the release of your endocannabinoids.
I did not know that it was. That's amazing.
Yes.
I have recently taken it up.
Okay. So that's why when we talk about the yoga, right? And so it all kind of makes sense. If we have these endogenous endocannabinoids that are being released based on these certain things that we're doing, and CBD is also doing the same thing, what stands to reason then that when your mind and your body in meditation are connecting, and that's really what meditation is all about, that you're also feeling this release. So that's something that, again, I'm going to continue to spend more time on talking about because it's fascinating to me. But just the fact that I'm not the only one sitting here having these experiences, it's pretty cool to be able to talk to somebody else about it.
Absolutely.
And people not go, "You're freaking crazy." What are you?
So as I said, I listened to listened to a guided meditation at night, but then recently I really see the value and have read a lot of literature on meditating. So I have taken it upon myself. I'm only doing a 5-minute meditation every morning, but that is a part of my daily practice just in the last couple of months. And I'm looking forward to seeing the benefits from that too.
That's awesome. Another thing too that I wanted to make sure that I brought up, because you wanted me to remind you to talk about it, is your overall mood.
Yeah.
I mean, give me kind of a comparative.
Well, I would, as much as you don't like to talk bad and tell some of your negative parts about you, but I've dealt with anger issues and also just depression. I've battled a little bit in the past, and my overall mood is pretty happy all the time now. And I find myself being so much more tolerable, which is something that might have set me off into an anger rage before. And now I'm able to look at the situation, process it, and respond instead of react. I feel like it's given me a little bit of my personal power back in not being so just like freak out and have a reaction. I'm able to control my emotions more and respond in a more proper way.
Yeah, which is also quite fascinating.
And like traffic is a good example.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Driving, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I still find myself losing it a little bit. But not as often as it used to be, perhaps. But I get it, because it's weird, because it's almost like instead of having a emotional, chemical driven reaction to this situation, it's almost kind of like you just are forced to think it through. Yeah. Chill out, and even if you're still irritated by it, you're just approaching it differently.
Sometimes I'm amazed by the words that come out. I'm like, I just handled that like a boss. That was amazing. So it's an awesome benefit.
And so that's a life changer in terms of what your relationships. Perhaps,
absolutely, right? All relationships. Yeah, close, especially your close ones.
Yes. Yeah. So he's thankful for this as well.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine.
Yes. For sure.
So again, this is really incredibly compelling. It's an amazing story. And I'm just so happy for you, because I can see as I sit here today how comfortable you are sitting here, just being able to literally sit. This isn't a bothersome place or position to be in.
Right.
And in the past it was. There was something that was nagging. There was something that was, you were nagging, something was bugging you while you sat there.
Yes.
If it wasn't in the mind, right?
Right.
It was something in the body.
Right.
And so you can sit here today, and I can just tell by looking at you, you're glowing because you're just not trapped in all of that crazy stuff that's going on.
It's been a game changer for my life.
So fascinating story, and one of many, many more to come. But this, I think, is one example of somebody who I know well and trust. Mm-hmm. This is not stuff that she's making up unless she really, planned on having these conversations with me for 8 years or however long it's been for this day to get here, right? Not the case. But the other thing too, I want to make sure that I, discuss, and will always remind you, viewers, of this. It's a miraculous story. Now, are we going out there and saying everybody else is going to have these same results? No. But I think it's important for people watching to know that this person here, who I know well and know firsthand, has suffered from these issues for a very, very long time, is sitting here today, 8 months after she really got serious about utilizing and taking CBD and doing it right and buying the right product. If the product isn't working for you for some reason, there's going to be a reason. So that's where we need to then try and identify why isn't it working for you? Because the reality is it does so many amazing things within our body. Mm-hmm. It's working all the time. We feel it each and every day, every hour, every minute, because of where we've been. Mm-hmm. And so that's why this is something that I want to make sure I continue to share with you, the viewers. And so again, if you have an opportunity to share this with others where this could be a benefit, anybody that's suffering from some condition that Sara had, please do that so that they can identify with her. She can identify with them in terms of what, they've been going through. She's lived it herself.
Yeah.
And if this is something that, again, you'd like to see some shows about some other things, please leave your comments. Don't forget to subscribe so we continue to keep these cool shows coming your way and all kinds of other cool content that we're doing. Really cool projects. But this is just I think at this point in time, absolute favorite. I know it's going to be. So looking forward to bringing you more of this. We appreciate being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. If this content was of benefit to you and you'd like to see more of it coming your way, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, if this could be of benefit to somebody you love or care about, please make sure and share it with them. Of course, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know why so I can do a better job moving forward. And lastly, if you are currently taking CBD or considering taking CBD moving forward, again, I'm not a medical professional, so I'm not here to give any sort of medical advice. I'm only here to give you some guidance and some knowledge. Make sure that you have that conversation with your doctor, your psychiatrist, your medical professional before you start to take CBD, especially if you're taking other medications, so they can help guide you along the way. I wish you the best. Good luck to you. I'll see you soon.